Guys, welcome back to another video. So today, well, technically 2 weeks ago, I decided that it was time to tackle this super boring, super long, narrow, tall entryway hallway. And so we built this house in 2021, well, 2020, but we moved in 2021. And it was just a construction mess for about 2 years because when we moved in, we tore everything back essentially to the drywall and we had to put all of our finishes, floors, baseboards, like everything in. So it has just been this really long process of going room by room and figuring out what I want, what works with our family, what works with how we use our home. And I'm a really big proponent of making sure that your home is for your people and not vice versa. Your people should not be for your home. I'm going to do a mini tangent here for a second. So I apologize, but maybe this is something that will help convict you, or maybe it's just something you've never heard. We live in an Instagram world where everything is supposed to be like aesthetic, right? Everything's supposed to be perfect. You're never supposed to have a dirty counter. You're never supposed to have any sort of like sign of actual living happening in your home because for the gram. I don't know. Maybe this is the millennial in me speaking. I'm not really sure, but I also grew up in a militantly clean household. And I'm not talking like we grew up super, super poor. So we didn't have the best of anything. Everything we had was either thrifted, hand me down, dumpster, rescued, that kind of thing. But despite all of that, we never had a cluttered, dirty house. We were always expected to keep our spaces clean, and we were always expected to do certain chores. And to some degree, I do believe that it was a little overboard because, just for example, I don't know if anybody else's mom did this, but if like we left a dirty dish, if it was our turn to do the dishes, and one of the dishes wasn't washed correctly and my mom was just in a whatever mood, we would come in and every dish in the kitchen would be like on the counter ready to be rewashed. And I'm talking like the china, the pots, the pans, like everything in the house, every dish in the house was ready to be washed by you since you didn't do it correctly the first time. So like not that sort. I don't want to be that sort of militant because I believe that you can swing into both ditches on either direction and both of them are sinful. The type of militant cleaning where your people are never allowed to make a mistake and you never give any grace and they're never allowed to use your space, the space that they live in, then that is sinful. You should not be glorifying the space that you live in, no matter where you live or how you live, more than the eternal souls that live in your home. And so I'll just say I grew up nominally Roman Catholic. My parents were Creasters, that's like Christmas, Easter Catholics. And we were expected to like walk to church. We lived right down the street from a Catholic church. So us kids went to church and we were involved in everything in the Catholic Church initially, but my parents didn't go. So for us, it was an escape. It was also like they would feed us, so that was nice. And they were nice to us, like the priest and the lay people who worked at the Catholic Church. They were nice to us, which was nice. It was a nice breath of fresh air to get out of the craziness that was our home. So no, and I'm not knocking Catholicism or anything like that. I'm not a Catholic, clearly. But I don't know if this was just the thing that my mother had, I guess, like, inherited from Catholicism. I'm not really sure. None of that really matters. But the whole idea that your house is supposed to be pristine and you should be able to eat off the floors is wrong, right? Because you have people in your home and people make messes. And if you have little people in your home, if you have lots of children, they are going to make lots of messes. And it's your job as their parent to teach them how to clean up and to keep their space tidy and how to teach them to glorify the Lord in the mundane things like housekeeping and things like that. But it is not your job to militantly police the mess everywhere in your home. It's just not honoring to the eternal souls that are in your house. if you are spending so much time just harping on them about why don't you ever clean up, blah, 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 and you're destroying the relationship with those eternal souls, then there's a huge problem. You are putting the people behind the space, and that's incorrect. The space is supposed to be used by the people. So I will refer to this as wrongly and rightly ordered thinking, and do with that what you will. So the other thing that I wanted to kind of touch on is in the opposite ditch. So you can be such a clean freak that you never let people use your space, right? You can also be such a lazy, I don't know what to call it, hoarder. I'm not really sure. You can be very lazy, and you can be like, okay, well, since I want people to use my space is just going to be full of clutter and dust and trash. And I've talked about this in previous videos, but I was a professional organizer for several years and a housekeeper as well. And one thing that I saw over and over and over, it was true in literally every cluttered house I walked into, every dirty home I walked into. The thing that was true is that the person keeping the house was lazy. Maybe not in their career. Maybe they had like a stellar career. Maybe they were good parents. That might have been true as well. They might have been driving their kids to 85 extracurricular activities and they were never actually home. But they were lazy about their housekeeping because when they got home, they just wanted to breathe and not work. And we have this improper idea that when you get home, you can just stop functioning. Like you can just come in, and I've seen this time and time again. Like a bunch of my friends are like, I love getting home where I can just take my bra off and breathe. Well, no, you actually can't, because if you're living out your values as a Christian, your home is supposed to be productive. And that doesn't mean that you don't come home and take a breath of relief and you don't find your home relaxing and cozy and things like that. You should. But it just means that your house is still a place of work. It's still a place of function. It's not that you never get to relax. It's that when you're resting, you're intentional about your resting. You're not just coming home from driving your kids to their 85th activity that week, which if that's you, repent and pull your kids out of those stinking activities. Heaven's more important than Harvard, okay? So just repent, get your kids out of all those dang activities, and get back at home. Okay, so I'm saying that as a tangent to every single dirty home I walked into, and I'm talking about like dirty hoarder dirty normal dirty, dirty cluttered dirty, every home I've ever been into that was dirty and I was hired to clean, it was partially because of laziness, also partially, mostly because the people owned too many things. So if this is you, also repent and start getting rid of some things. I have firsthand experience with this because my grandparents, who somewhat raised us, they were Depression era children. So they had the idea, like my grandmother always washed her tin foil and saved it and reused it. You never knew opening her fridge if the butter dish was actually butter or if it was something left over. You just never knew. So all of that just leads to a very cluttered, untidy home. And I have several videos about how to get rid of your clutter, how to stop clutter from happening in the first place. If you scroll all the way back to the beginning of the channel, that's one of the first topics I touched on, because it's just a cornerstone thing in keeping your house tidy. And again, I'm not talking about falling into the ditch of complete minimalism. You only own one plate, one spoon, one cup, whatever. Like that's what not, I think that's also sinful. You can go to the extreme in being extremely aesthetic, or you can go to the extreme in being extremely minimal. And both are incorrect. You shouldn't be like concerned about not having anything in your home, but you shouldn't also be concerned about having all the things in your home. And I think when I walked into incredibly cluttered houses and the women were just so overwhelmed, they didn't even know where to start. So they were calling me to come help them. Their default reaction would be, well, help me organize my space. And here's the secret. The secret is you cannot organize your space if your space is so full that there's no movement in it. If you cannot see the floor somewhere, that can't be organized. It has to be decluttered, which means you have to get rid of things. And so again, go look at the decluttering videos in the beginning of the channel because they're going to be super helpful to you if that's where you are. So I think one of the things that I'm pretty blunt. If you can't tell, I'm pretty honest. I think it's important to be very honest with yourself. If you're struggling with housekeeping, is it because you're being lazy? Are you spending too much time on social media? Are you watching too many videos of people cleaning their homes and not cleaning your home yourself? That's a thing that actually happens. You get, like, this is a scientific thing where people's brains get scratched by watching people be productive instead of being productive themselves. So if you've ever wondered why your kids like to watch people play video games and also play video games, it's that they like to watch other people be productive because it's almost like you can substitute yourself being productive. And now, of course, I consume a lot of YouTube content. I love to watch people beautifying their spaces. I love to watch other female content creators, especially Christian content creators with lots of kids. I love to watch and see how are they glorifying God in their lives? And is there something in their life that I can pick up in mine? Or is there maybe something in theirs that like aggravates me and I'm not even realizing it until I see them doing it? And then I'm like, oh, wait, I do that too. Maybe that's a conviction. So just things to think about. Like your space is for your people, not vice versa. And don't fall into either ditch on either side. Don't be so concerned about making your space pretty that you stop fellowshipping with your people at church. Don't be so concerned about making your space so maximal that you can't even like invite people over because you're so cluttered that you don't even know what to do. You can't even practice hospitality. You can fall into a sinful ditch on either side. And if I'm being honest, I fall into I want my space to be super, super tidy all the time, and I don't want people to mess it up ditch. That's where I'm more likely to lean to. But I will say, especially in the past like 2 to 3 years, I've really, really intentionally tried to just get over it. So last Sunday, I was painting this hallway that you'll see. And we had a friend come over who needed his brakes work done, and he brought his girlfriend with him. And so they came into my house, and my house looked like a war zone. Like literally, it looked like a bomb exploded because it was Sunday. I don't do much housework on Sunday because that's the Lord's Day, and we're going to church. And typically, we have our small group. And I'm just not that concerned about getting it all tidied. Sunday night, I'll do a little tidying so that Monday I don't wake up completely overwhelmed. But Sunday is a day for me to focus on being productive in ways that I really enjoy. And for me, that was renovating this hallway. So people came over, there was paint everywhere. I mean, I was dressed like a hobo because I was in my painting clothes. There were boards that were being stained on the dining room table. There was dishes piled up in the sink. It hadn't been vacuumed in a couple of days. Right. And so when people came in, I was like, oh my gosh, I had this moment where I'm like, oh no, my house is so gross. I should do the dishes. And then I just calmed down and ordered pizza. Right. I'm just like, no, you know what? These people are coming here so that my husband can help the boyfriend fix his brakes and learn how to take care of his car so that they have a reliable vehicle together. Like, they're grateful that we're helping them. I'm grateful that I get to show hospitality, even if it's really scruffy hospitality, even if it's kind of rough around the edges hospitality, and even if it's just Domino's pizza, right? I'm getting to show these people who are coming into my space that, look, my space isn't perfect. It's a mess sometimes. And I'm in the middle of painting and beautifying and glorifying this space. And you're still welcome to come here. I'm still going to put something on the plate in front of you, even if it's just Domino's pizza. So like, I just want to encourage you, if you're in a season where life is hard and you're just struggling to do hospitality, suck it up, buttercup, do the hospitality anyway. You absolutely can. And nobody is going to care. Nobody's going to come into your space and be like, oh my gosh, there's paint on the floor, right? Because everybody's lives has got paint on the floor somewhere, and that's a metaphor. All right, so now that I'm done with that tangent, what I'm doing here is I was searching on Pinterest and I put those inspiration photos in the beginning of this video. And I wanted to see what it would look like. So I used some painter's tape, I guess it's like frog tape or something, just kind of to map out what I was thinking in my head, because I'm not able to visually picture things in my brain. I'm just one of those people that I have to see it on paper or in person before the concept becomes clear to me. And I'm also one of those people that doesn't hear conversations in my head. So, like, I talk out loud a lot. If you have ever been around me when I'm like in a stressful season, a lot of times I will just start talking about the situation and I'm just looking to actually vocally hear what what my brain is doing, because I don't hear it in my head. It's very strange. When somebody was like, "Oh yeah, I was talking to myself in my head and I said this and then the other person said that and I was replaying a conversation." And I was like, "Wait, people hear themselves in their heads?" Because I do not. I also don't see things inside my head. Like, I've got to see it out in the real world. I've got to hear it out in the real world. So this was just a very practical step for me, although it did take a while, where you'll see I measured out where I wanted some, like, I think picture frame molding to go on the top there. And I'm just taking my time. I looked up some dimensions, like some suggested dimensions online, and everything I read said that you want your picture frame molding to have a frame of about 6 inches around. So 6 inches from the ceiling, 6 inches from the wall, 6 inches from another picture frame molding. And this hallway, I think, is 16 feet long. It doesn't look that long in the video, but it is super long. It's 10-foot tall ceilings. Yeah, 10-foot tall ceilings. And it's very narrow. I think it is 4.5 feet wide. So for a hallway, that's pretty narrow. And I only have enough space in this hallway for that skinny little console table right there. And that console table is 11 inches wide. So you have 11 inches there. The door, I think, is 3.5 inches. And then it's not quite 11 inches on the other side. It's like 9 inches on the other side of the door. So this is a narrow, tall hallway. Thankfully, we do have the transit window above the door. I do want to replace this door in the future, but we were out at Home Depot and Lowe's and we were pricing doors. And it is just prohibitively expensive to buy a door with glass window panes in it. It's crazy. One of the doors that I liked was $3,000. And I was like, I am not spending $3,000 on a front door. Shut the front door. It's not happening. So anyhow, that will be a future project. We might see if we can't thrift something or maybe find something at the Habitat Restore, which if you're in the middle of a remodel or if you're just looking for a one-off item, check out your nearest Habitat for Humanity Restore. A lot of contractors will donate their materials from their jobs that are just leftover to Habitat Restore. We actually tried to donate the carpet from this house when we moved in, and they wouldn't take it because they would only take new carpet that was wrapped and rolled. It was new carpet, it just wasn't wrapped and rolled. We had just moved in and we didn't want the carpet, so we ripped it out immediately before we even ever walked on it. And they wouldn't take it. So they are selling like new things. Okay. So I don't want you to get the idea that it's used stuff, although probably maybe some of their furniture is used there. I'm not really sure. We've gotten doors and windows and things like that. When my husband was building a tree house, he sourced almost all of the materials for the tree house at the Habitat Restore. So it is great for those one-off sort of projects, or if you're looking for like a bathroom vanity and you can be flexible on the measurements, or mirrors, mattresses, that kind of thing. And you can get like excellent deals on small amounts of tile, paint, and even siding. I've seen all kinds of things at our local Habitat Restore. Very cool concept. And it supports Habitat for Humanity, so that's pretty cool too. So anyways, I might drive up to the Habitat Restore just to kind of take a peek and see if I can't find a reasonably priced front door to replace this one with. Also, I want to go out thrifting because I want to find art for this project when I'm all said and done, but I'm not there yet. So, what I'm doing is I'm just measuring and figuring out what the molding is going to look like. we're going to be replacing the door frame here. So the house is done in craftsman style, and it's pretty modern looking. Not modern like glass and metal, but very square. Like the door casings are square, the hallways are square. Now, there's no arches, there's no fine detail or anything. Everything is very plain, clean lines, straight. And for whatever reason, when the contractor did all the door casings, they put in this pretty detailed door framing, and it doesn't match because the house is craftsman and it's very like square. These round frames just don't look good. It feels out of place. It feels like it was just a last minute, oh, I have this framing left over, I'm going to stick it here. So yeah, so we're ripping it out and replacing it with craftsman framing anyway. So I wanted to measure and make sure that whatever I was going to do here, and at this point, spoiler alert, this project is basically already done. You just won't see that video quite yet. But I wasn't quite sure at this point in time if I was going to do board and batten or beadboard or something in between. I wasn't sure on what the project was going to cost. I was just mapping it out to see, okay, if I do this, then it would cost this much. And if I do this, then it would cost that much. These are the colors that I'm kind of looking at. So this was all very conceptual as I was working on it. And I think it's important that people realize that projects like this take way longer than you think they're going to. Had I had a super concrete idea of what I was doing in the very beginning, I think it would have gone a lot faster. But since I was just sort of putting this out in the real world to figure out what it might look like if I actually did it, it was a very slow going process because I wanted to be sure that whatever I did, I was actually going to like. So, yeah. And all of the paint needed to be retouched up in here, so I wasn't too concerned if I like marked up the wall or anything because I had planned on repainting no matter what anyway. All right, so all that to say that just, if you're going to tackle a project like this, be aware that it's probably going to take more time than you think it's going to. I thought that once we started it, it would only take about a weekend, and maybe that was true if we didn't have other stuff going on like life, but it took longer than I thought it was going to take, which is fine. I have time. It's not like I'm rushing to try to finish this or anything. And it was kind of one of those like one-off projects where I saw a picture and I just thought the picture was so beautiful and I loved everything about it. And then I showed my husband and I was like, do you think that we could do this in the hallway? Because truth be told, I really hated how boring this hallway was. It's just so long and tall and plain. And another thing that I kind of despise about houses is when you enter into a long hallway. It doesn't feel very welcoming to me. So I wanted to change this space, and I was using that idea of I want this space to feel welcoming because this is the first space that people see when they enter my house. And right now it just feels boring and kind of cold. And I try to change things up with that little console table there in the entry by adding flowers and little trinkets and things like that. And it's just not working. In fact, that console table, I think, actually makes the hallway feel narrower because it's right there when you walk in. So I'm going to be doing something with that later in a different video. But for now, I have just mapped everything out, and I think coming up here, I spliced in kind of like I drew everything on paper first, and then I did the measurements on the wall later because I wasn't quite sure if what I drew out on paper would work and translate to the wall, and luckily it did, and the measurements all worked out really well. And also, I think you should know that I'm really terrible at math. I do not like the maths. I do not do the maths. Having to relearn algebra to teach my son was a real challenge, and this was like using all the fractions and division and stuff like that, and just not a fan of the maths. So anyhow, I will have a part 2 posted probably later this week. where I actually go through and we do the construction, we cut the panels, we do the painting and the priming and the caulking and all the stuff. And you'll be able to see the before and after, and hopefully see the vision that I had in the beginning and how we made it work for this space in the end. So I hope you guys are having a wonderful week. I hope that you had a restful Saturday and Sunday, and that you were able to go to church and be with your people in fellowship. So anyhow, thank you again for all the new subscribers. I really appreciate the comments and the likes. That super helps out my channel. The best thing that you can do, though, is you can share this video with a friend that you think might find it useful and helpful. So here I'm just showing you the little end photos. All right, Solo Deo Gloria. Have a fantastic day. Thank you again. Bye. Love you.